Every time I come in, I think the seat gets lower.
You know, they pulled it back so late. They told me I people here.
Good evening. Man, that was mighty quiet for such a packed room. Good evening. Thank you. Welcome to the August 12th meeting of your Aiken City Council. We're going to call it to order at this time. We're going to have an invocation, which will be delivered by Mr. Richard Johnson. And then we're going to have some members of Troop 115 who are visiting with us come up after the invocation to lead us in our pledge. So, Mr. Johnson, I'd welcome you to the mic. Thank you for being with us this evening. Stand if you would like to.
May we pray. Oh, graceful and merciful Father, once again, we come before thy throne of mercy. We come, Lord, giving thee thanks for all of the blessings that thou hast bestowed upon us. We thank you, Lord, that thou hast allowed us to assemble at this appointed place one more time. And as we are assembled, we ask that you please guide and direct the minds of our city officials, that they may transact the business for thee. Bless our Father, those that were recently injured in gun violence in our community. We pray, Lord, that justice would be served. We ask you now to bless this city, this state, this nation, and Lord, remember the citizens of the city of Aiken. These blessings we ask you in the name of your Son and our Savior, Jesus Christ. Tonight we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Now I think we have some members from Troop 115 who are going to come forward. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for being with us today. I'm going to ask if you would introduce yourselves at the mic, and then we will pledge.
I'm Hanzo French.
Welcome.
And I'm Ron Shepard.
Ron, welcome. Well, we're going to turn and face the flag and let you lead us in our pledge.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. We'd like to cover the guidelines of our meetings for Aiken City Council. During meetings, Aiken City Council conducts the business of our city, and we expect professional decorum from everyone participating. During public hearings, we welcome input and information from residents and stakeholders. If you would like to speak about an item on our agenda, please raise your hand, and I will certainly recognize you. Please approach the podium, state your name and address, and share your comments. We ask that your comments address the topic being considered by council and are limited to 5 minutes. Each person may only address the topic once unless questions from council members are posed. And I ask that comments be directed to the chair. We thank you for following our guidelines so that our meetings will be orderly and productive. With that, I'd like to recognize our Mayor Pro Tem, Ms. Gail Diggs, for additions and deletions to the agenda.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Mayor and Council, there is one continued item on the agenda under new business. Number 1, first reading of an ordinance amending section 22.4 of the Aiken City Code regarding the discharge of firearms or other weapons. That, number 1, under new business will be continued. Are there any other deletions or additions?
Okay, very good.
Any others?
I don't believe so.
With there being none, I make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Here we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of the agenda as presented with that amendment, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you.
I think we're making clear, Mr. Mayor, we're not going to discuss the Woodside deer issue. That is the item.
It was asked by the
That was the item the Mayor Pro Tem
by the property owners that be continued.
continued.
The minutes were presented to council for their review before our meeting. Is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
I so move.
Thank you, Councilman Diggs. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councilman Waltz. Appreciate it. All those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. You did. Moving down to item number 2 on our agenda, presentations. The first thing we have is a presentation of certificates to the first graduating class of the Aiken Department of Public Safety's Junior Citizens Academy. Now, let me say, this was a great group. Several of us on council had an opportunity to go to their graduation day, and it was really encouraging to hear the comments that were made by these young people who went through this program. It was sponsored by our public safety. And I'm going to look, if I can. Chief, do we have someone who would like to talk a little bit about the program?
I do.
Okay.
He does now.
Marcus.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd
Good
just
evening.
like to say this program is a spinoff of our regular Citizens Academy, and because of that, and in light of recent events, having a relationship with our youth is paramount to our success as a community and us at Public Safety. And who led our charge at Public Safety was Public Safety Officer Marquise Davis, and I'm going to turn the mic over to him to let him talk just a few minutes about it.
Hey, Officer Davis.
Hey, how you doing, Mr. Mayor, Council? The Junior Citizens Academy was an attempt to change the perception of law enforcement, starting with the city of Aiken. Basically, if we can reach juveniles by the time they're adults, they'll be able to recognize that law enforcement is here to help. So that's what the goal was. I'm pretty sure they'll say that, some of them may say that the perception has changed, and we preach perception is reality the whole time. And so I thank Chief for allowing us to do it. Hopefully it'll become a successful annual event. That's all I got to say.
We hope so also. So we have several, hopefully most of the graduating members, and I will say one of our council members took it upon herself and wanted to frame them, which they look terrific. You have a statement I think you may want to read. Councilwoman Gregory is not able to be with us tonight, so if you...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did receive this message from Councilwoman Andrea Gregory earlier today, and it says thus: I want to begin by apologizing for not being in attendance. I am out of the country and my trip was extended unexpectedly. I want to welcome each one of the participants, their families, as the first class to attend the Junior Public Safety Academy. Thank you for allowing council the time to keep your certificates so we can have them framed. We felt it was appropriate to frame your accomplishment as a reminder of the road to success that you will embark in. We hope this serves as a reminder that our community cares about each of you, wishes all the best for you, and wants to encourage each one of you to believe in yourselves. Lead by example and be proud of your contribution to our city via this program. Hang it up and let it remind you that leaders will stand for what is right and make good, sound decisions. Thank you for coming out tonight and for allowing us the opportunity to celebrate you for partaking in this great program. Have a nice evening and God bless each of you.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask if council will join me just in front of the dais here. I'm going to have Mr. Beanball call out the names, Marquise and Chief, if you wouldn't mind joining me also. We'd like to call them out and each one of us get a chance to shake their hand and congratulate them for this program. So if council would join me out front, and we're going to let Mr. Beanball call our graduates out. Come right here, this is fine, so he can hand them over to you.
Drew Whitehead.
Yeah, I think.
Jalen Valdez. Christian Walston. Anna Lewis. Ticarian Leverett. Alexander Lewis. Malik Smalls. Rayshawn Glover. Destiny Page. Dennis Parrott. Walker Griswold.
Guys, don't come over here. We're gonna take the name to it right. Sorry. Wide angle. Doug.
This is something that I got from another mentor in the city. But everybody likes it. So you ready? All right, 3 claps and Ric Flair.
I heard it a lot. We have a lot of good young people in our city, you know that?
Yes, we do. So proud of each and every one of them.
Next, under presentations, we have presentations for Eustis Park Tennis Clinic. Do you have comments, or you want me to?
We do have Betty Myers, who's very instrumental in the Tool Hill area, has, again, worked very hard with this tennis clinic, and her helper or assistant, Pinky Johnson, has sent some information, Mr. Mayor, and essentially, she wants to there's been a couple of people that have given help with the clinic in the past, Mike Walcott, Felicia Tucker, and Frederica Tucker. And, but One of the main drivers of this is Mr. Leonard Bush, and I would like to recognize the names of those individuals who have played on the team, if I may.
Very good.
This year, the 2019 Community Tennis Players sponsored by the Tool Hill neighborhood are Joseph Birch, Noah Birch, Sienna Birch, Jordan Walker, Kaylee Cabrera.
They want to come up. Let them come up.
Come on out.
Come on up.
Yes.
Come on up.
Come on up. What the heck?
You can come on around.
You can stay. Have this chair.
I got Gil, he's coming to the center chair.
The mayor wants you.
Come on over. All
Am I
right.
supposed to come up here?
Yeah, that's all right. That's exactly right. Tell me your name again.
Noah Birch.
Did you learn a lot in the tennis program?
Yes.
And you had a good time?
Yes, sir.
That's pretty awesome. We appreciate this community putting this on for us, don't we?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Very good. We got some of your friends coming up. We have some other places.
Yes,
Hang on with me for a second.
Charity Hall,
Yeah. Charity. Come on up, Charity.
Joshua Hall,
Everybody pick a council member.
Gabrielle Davis, Charles Davis, Malia Rice, the player coach Crystal Johnson. Thank you.
Latecomer.
Come on up.
It's so kind.
We did not get the player or the coach's last name, but Rihanna
Williams, I believe.
Williams.
Thank you. Is Rihanna here? All right, can we give everybody a hand again? Okay. All right, guys, we just want to thank y'all for participating in the program, being here. Thank you for coming up here and sharing with us. So we shared a good time. What's something that somebody learned through the program that you didn't know or had an opportunity to do that you'd never done before? Go ahead.
I learned how to be not like a person who when they don't win they get mad.
Be good sports. Be a good sport. That's an important lesson. You raised your hand. What did you want to tell us?
I learned
You want to turn around? You can tell them. There you go. Go ahead.
learned how to hit the ball in tennis.
All right. That's important. Life lessons. Life lessons. Miss Betty, you want to make some comments too, didn't you?
The coach is here.
Well, Coach, if you'd like to come up and make some comments, we're just all standing up here waiting on you. How about that? You can make them from the podium if you'd like. Or, yes, sir. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank y'all for inviting me out here tonight, and it's a honor and a pleasure to be here. And like I said, first of all, I'm just so grateful to God that God allowed me to be able to, give some of my time and talents back to the community. A lot of times we be doing other things, but to me, it's important to instill in our kids, because it's so many things that even if you just look here in the city of Aiken, there's a lot of things that kids doing that they shouldn't be doing.
Right.
And so to me, it's important that, to take time out with them, to show them how to, first of all, how to act, how to carry themselves in lives. And also, it's important to me for us that, we should be role models the kids. A lot of times, they look up to other people's, like on TV and other places. But to me, it's our duty to here right in the community to see not afar off, but to see how a role model close up, because that's where you learn your training from, and I still, that old saying still is, it still takes a village to raise a child.
Coach, I want to make some comments if I can, real quickly. Everybody in this room, just like you, has a busy schedule and a lot of things going, and I know you're no different, but you made time and you made an impact on these lives right here. Guys, could we clap and thank Coach for what he did for us? Thank you for making a difference. Now, Ms. Betty, did they get some certificates already, or have they been awarded something?
No, we're planning something.
Okay, so at a later date, we're going to do something, but we wanted to recognize you guys at this meeting, because we think it's so impactful for what you've done and completed, and we're proud of you. Thank you for doing that. And I think tennis will be something you'll probably enjoy your whole life now, right? So thank y'all for being here. Can we give them all a hand one more time?
Mayor, we're not finished either. We're gonna bring them back out weeks that they're not doing anything. Spring breaks, we bring them out. Every day they get out of school, we try to bring them.
So for spring breaks and time y'all are out, we'll still get to play. So thank y'all for being here with us. We appreciate it. It's certainly a privilege for this mayor to get a chance to speak to you and recognize you. So thank y'all for coming up and helping us back here too. So if y'all guys want to meander back, that would be fine, but I'm sure everybody here would like to congratulate you one more time as you walk back. So thanks again and congratulations.
The attorney's place. Sarah?
It's easy to do.
Well, you never know what you're going to get at an Aiken City Council meeting, do you? That was awesome. I'm proud of those kids. We're going to move down to the section old business of our agenda. Item number 1 is discussion of appointees to various city boards, commissions, and committees, and I'll recognize City Manager Stuart Biedenball for any considerations we might have before us tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, we have no pending appointments for council consideration.
Okay, very good. I'd just like to encourage everybody to look over what boards and commissions and committees vacancies you might have and bring those forward so we can fill those to work for our city. I'd like to move one forward at this time for consideration at our next meeting. Sarah, why did you look at me so surprised? Royal Robbins to be reappointed to the Aviation Committee, please. Okay, Mr. Jericho?
I'd like to reappoint Tina McCarthy to the Accommodation Tax Committee.
Any other names to be considered?
Mr. Mayor, I have 4 appointees.
Okay.
One is James Gallman to the Housing Authority. That's a reappointment. John Wallace to the Recreation Commission, a reappointment. Leroy Myrick to the Community Development Commission, a reappointment. And a new appointee to the Equine Committee, Chad Ingram, who has been for some time with the horse industry. He is a city resident. So Chad is excited about serving.
Very good. He's a past chairman of the Aiken Training.
That is correct.
All right, we appreciate those, and we'll have those for consideration at our next meeting. Thank you. Moving down to item number 2 under old business. This is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to approve an amendment to agreement with Montmorency Couchton Water and Sewer District by title, an ordinance allowing the City of Aiken to amend its agreement with the Montmorency Couchton Water and Sewer District, Inc. regarding the provision of water and sewer services. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Waltz. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We first developed an agreement with the Montmorency Couchton Water and Sewer District in 1996 and last amended in 2002. And the purpose of this amendment will allow us to it'll assist us in our collection of sewer fees. Currently, there are portions within our sewer service area where Montmorency Couched and Water and Sewer District provides water. And if you don't pay your sewer bill to the city, we want to have a means to enforce collection. And certainly due to health reasons and effluent overflow, we would not want to eliminate the sewer, but this would give us the ability to install a water shutoff valve, and it would be used by the city of Aiken in the event the customer fails to pay their utility bill timely. And we will work closely with the district to communicate this information of service interruption to those customers should that happen. You approved this at the July 8th meeting at first reading, and it is before you for second reading this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Beanbaum. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council? All those in favor on second reading, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving down old business to item number 3. This is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to amend the Aiken City Code to add Chapter 11 to be entitled The City of Aiken Municipal Development Commission. By title, an ordinance amending the Aiken City Code to add Chapter 11 to be entitled the City of Aiken Municipal Development Commission. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Price, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Jericho. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have discussed this beginning in mid-May. It was proposed that we bring this forward to council, and we had several work sessions in early and late June. Council heard it at first reading on June the 10th and passed it. Then it was sent back to be discussed at a work session. This committee or commission would assist the city with economic development, but it would be a standalone commission as laid out in state code. And what we would do is we're proposing in the ordinance that the commission would consist of 9 members, 3 of whom would be city council members, with 6 commissioners appointed by city council, with the city manager serving as an ex officio member of the commission. Bylaws would be drafted by the new commission. And it is before you tonight for second reading after council approved this at first reading and public hearing at your June 10th meeting.
All right. Thank you. Any comments from the audience? Okay. Comments from council?
Yes, I have several questions, which ought not to be surprising. This is not where I thought we'd be when we had second reading. I thought we would be more defined. The very first sentence in the ordinance, whereas the staff of the city of Aiken has advised the city council that a blighted area or conservation area exists. I don't know where the blighted area is. And I think it's a very general comment to make, and it should be specified. We are approving a charter without approving the rules of the charter. We seem to be adopting the law that is attached in our packet. And this charter is going to be able to buy and sell property. It's going to be able to accept gifts of money and property and make donations of same to nonprofit. I'm not even sure whether they can do that as a city body, a municipal body, enter development agreements for specific projects, and borrow and lend money or issue development bonds secured solely by the value of individual development bonds. Any such bonds would not impact the debt service, credit worthiness, or debt limit of the city. I'm not sure whether that can even be done. This needs, in my opinion, this needs a lot more work. I'm not against economic development, but I am against approving a commission of this city that can buy bonds and issue bonds and buy and sell property and so forth. We have the Aiken Corporation that has traditionally done that, and I'd much prefer working with that body than this. So it should come as no surprise. I'm not going to support this. It needs a lot more work, and I'm concerned with the powers that we're giving away. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for your comments. I'm going to break protocol and address, because I had similar concerns in several ways. As I went back and started looking at the state code which forms this, which is section 311010, blighted areas is very well defined. It's actually probably one of the best, in the debate of blight that I've seen, it's actually probably the best definition that I have, so I was comfortable with that. One thing I learned through questioning and researching it is, though, it's very much like the CDC, the Columbia Development Commission, with Fred Delk operates in Columbia, which is a standalone. You're right. They do put money in towards economic development projects, but it's not committing city monies. It's committing their own monies that they may raise either through private investment into it. It does not, and Stuart, please correct me if I'm incorrect, but I believe I'm right in this. They can in no way commit city funds unless this council agrees to that, and
It doesn't say that.
well, the statute does that.
In the statute, I
The
believe it
statute,
does.
the statute does. It's very clear on that. It is its own entity, but I will say, in that, in one vote, this board can disband that. So it probably doesn't have even the autonomy. I agree. I met today actually with officers of the Aiken Court, because to me, they will always be the primary arm that we use for economic development, but I think this brings in another tool into the toolbox. So I will support it tonight.
When North Augusta did theirs, they had a piece of property that they claimed was blighted, and it was of concern, and not everyone agreed with it. I mean, what's wrong with having the rules of this commission finalized before we approve it?
Right.
But anyway,
All right. Any other comments?
that's time.
Okay, all those in favor of second reading on this tonight, please raise your hand. And that's Councilman Waltz, Councilwoman Price, the Mayor, Councilwoman Diggs, Councilman Jericho, all those opposed. And for valid, I understand, Mr. Dwar. Councilman Dwar. The motion carries. Thank you. Moving down to new business, excuse me. Item 1 was continued under new business, so we'll move down to item number 2. This is a resolution authorizing the City of Aiken to enter into a purchase and sale agreement to acquire 107 Chesterfield Street South for use by the city as a new city hall facility. By title, a resolution authorizing the City of Aiken to enter into a purchase and sale agreement to acquire 107 Chesterfield Street South, Aiken, South Carolina, for use by the city as a new city hall facility and other matters related thereto. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Jericho. Is there a second?
I second.
Councilwoman Diggs, comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since 2012, city operations, administrative operations have been in 2 buildings, the historic municipal building where we are at this moment and the administration and finance building at 135 Lawrence Street Southwest. We have been presented with an opportunity to consolidate these administrative operations at the building formerly occupied by Regions Bank at 107 Chesterfield South, originally built in 1930 as the Henderson Hotel, and subsequently it became a bank, first occupied by Palmetto Federal and then Regions Bank until this branch closed April of 2019. The property would be purchased by Southeastern Palmetto LLC, a subsidiary of Southeastern Development, the firm that renovated our property that Public Safety Headquarters currently occupies on Beaufort Street. And like that project, we would not execute a purchase of it until the renovation is complete, which we estimate could take 18 to 24 months. The cost paid to Southeastern Palmetto LLC would be for an amount not to exceed $11,021,000. And when complete, city administrative functions will be consolidated into this one facility with room for growth. We anticipate, like the Public Safety Headquarters project, city needs will be met for many years to come at this location. So you have before you tonight a resolution approving the City of Aiken to enter into a purchase and sale agreement to acquire 107 Chesterfield Street South for use by the city. as a new city hall facility. One thing I would like to add in terms of the funding comes from a variety of sources, including capital project sales tax money, sale of existing city property, and money that we have in special holding in our reserve funds. An item later tonight has some money dedicated for that. We would have to finance a portion of it. We estimate in the $6 to $7 million range would be financed, and the balance would be paid with those sources that I identified earlier, basically cash on hand plus cash equivalent in the form of the real estate. So this is before you tonight in the form of a resolution. Mr.
Thank
Mayor.
you. Thank you, Mr. Beanbaum. Any comments from the audience? Yes, sir. Hey, Dr. Napier, good evening.
I followed the Rocky Napier, Trafalgar Street for the past 30 years. I followed this in the newspaper, and my understanding is you guys are wanting to consolidate all of the administrative operations under one roof. Is that correct?
Yes.
I've also read in the newspaper that your intention is to sell the bank building on Lawrence Street. Is that true?
Yes.
But I have not heard what y'all intend to do with this building that we're in, since it carries on several city functions. Are you going to keep this building and continue to operate in some form or fashion? Or do you have a proposal to sell it and actually consolidate all the city operations under one roof in the old Powell Fed building?
Sure. Rocky, I thank you for asking that. And it's still very, very early on, but yes, there's conversations, even with other government entities that have a nature who are running out of space where they are at in our downtown area, who are very interested in this space. And moving forward with that conversation, it would probably be something where they do not need, for example, the downstairs that we rent out for events in our downtown. So the city would probably retain that area. So we could still have events, we could rent it, have it as a revenue source, but it would also alleviate a lot of overcrowding that we have in another government facility in our downtown, which would alleviate a concern with that moving away. So yes, sir, there is a plan that it would be used.
All right, thank you.
Good question. All right, any comments from council?
Just wanted for clarification, Mr. Mayor, on page 115, the cost paid to SC is $11,021,021. And then on page 116, the estimated cost, this is the agreement. The estimated cost of the project is $13,580,000. Just explain what that includes.
Absolutely.
For the record, please.
Very good point. There are certain elements of this project, approximately $2.5 million, that the city, as part of our costs, we will pay for ourselves. We believe we're better equipped to manage the installation of IT, for example, the furniture, the so-called furniture fixtures and equipment elements, similar to how we did the public safety building. Those sort of things, the installation of a generator, et cetera, would be handled by the city, not by the developer.
Thank you for the record.
Any other comments from council?
I agree with the concept of consolidating facilities, but I think with the financial obligations I'm aware of now, I'm not inclined to support this. I think this is more in the category of a want rather than a need.
Thank you, Mr. Dwyer. Hearing none other, all those in favor, please raise your hand.
Are we voting on the whole thing, or we?
Just that one, that's for clarification, just this one facility.
For clarification, this is for the facility at Chesterfield.
Okay.
Amendments will be made later on.
Okay, so the August 12th memo?
What this is a resolution to purchase the property for uses by the city as a new city hall facility. It does not address any other property such as the sale of Lawrence Street.
Okay.
That's in the next item.
Okay.
All right. You know, all those,
This memo that's in this part of this resolution does not not apply. Is that correct, Mr. Smith?
That's correct.
Okay.
okay. So for clarification, what we're voting on is a resolution authorizing the city to enter into a purchase and sale agreement to acquire 107 Chesterfield Street, South Aiken, South Carolina, for use of the city as a new city hall facility and other matters related thereto. Got a motion, second, conversation. All those in favor, please raise your hand. It's Councilman Waltz, Councilwoman Price, Mayor, Councilwoman Diggs, Councilman Jarrett, 4. All those opposed, Councilman DeWar. Motion carries. Moving down to item number 3 under new business. This is a first reading of an ordinance authorizing the financing of the new municipal building on Chesterfield Street South through an installment purchase contract. By title, an ordinance authorizing the sale or other disposition of certain existing city facilities, authorizing the city to enter into lease agreements, availability of the new city hall facility, authorizing the city to enter into an installment purchase transaction to finance the costs relating to the acquisition and equipping of a new city hall facility, authorizing the execution and delivery of various documents relating to such installment purchase transaction, including the base lease agreement and the installment purchase and use agreement, approving the use of certain money of the city, approving the issuance of bonds by the Aiken Public Facilities Corporation, delegating authority to the mayor and city manager to effect such transactions and determine certain matters, declaring the intent of the city to reimburse itself from tax-exempt bond proceeds and other matters related thereto. And I'd like to recognize the city manager for comments. City attorney, excuse me. I gave you a promotion.
I'm not sure I could take Stewart's job. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Prior to the meeting, there was some concerns about some of the documents in this ordinance, and so I'm going to propose an amendment to this ordinance. It's going to be actually several different amendments, and I'll go through them, and they're kind of lengthy, so if you'll bear with me, please. In the title of the ordinance, the amendment would remove the language, "the sale or other disposition of certain existing city facilities," authorizing the city to enter into lease agreements to provide adequate facilities pending the availability of the new city hall facility. And then the amendment would delete section 1F and 1G of the ordinance. The amendment would delete section 5 of the ordinance that deals with the disposition of the Lawrence Street property. It would delete section 6A of the ordinance that authorizes the city to lease this property back from the purchaser. It would remove the purchase agreement for the Lawrence Street building. That is an attachment to this ordinance. It would also remove the temporary lease agreement for the Lawrence Street building from the back of this ordinance. It is an attachment to that ordinance. And then just as a general matter, for housekeeping purposes, we would generally remove any and all references in this ordinance to the sale of the Lawrence Street building. And I believe if the council makes that amendment to the ordinance, that it would be acceptable to pass on first reading.
In essence, all those changes boil down to, it pulls the 135 Lawrence Street out of a sale regarding the Chesterfield at this time.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, very good. With those amendments, would someone be willing to make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Waltz. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Jarrett. I don't know that there's anything left to say, but I'll look to our city manager for comments from staff, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What this would do is allow for the financing of the building on Chesterfield Street through an installment purchase contract. This is just identical to how the public safety building was done. Essentially, what we would do is it would authorize the Chesterfield Street project and authorize the mayor and city manager to accomplish the project. It would also allow the city and our Public Facilities Corporation, which is handling, currently an active body handling the financing of the public safety building, they would also be empowered or be allowed to do an installment purchase financing method for this property of a similar vein as we get closer to the closing. It would also allow an installment purchase and use agreement between the City of Aiken and the Aiken Public Facilities Corporation. It will require the corporation to purchase the facility with the proceeds of the bond and sell it to the city over a term that will match the term of financing. And right now, we will bring forward financing at a later date, probably within a year, I would imagine. But right now, we're looking at a 30-year term. But of course, as we get that number we would not go beyond that, but we may shrink the term. And also, it has a base lease agreement between the City of Aiken and the Public Facilities Corporation to provide for the ownership of the real property, that is the dirt. And we are, as part of this, acquiring the entire plus or minus 1.57 acres of the region's property, which is the building itself, the surface asphalted drive-through area between the building and the pizza joint, and the surface parking to the south of Regions from the building towards the various businesses that front Park, the intersection of Park and Chesterfield. And this would allow, of course, the city to, as we did with public safety, a reimbursement declaration, which is sort of like a legal, allows us to reimburse ourselves from the financing proceeds, any amounts expended in furtherance of the project prior to the issuance of the bond, should we desire to do so. And that is before you tonight at first reading with the amendments eloquently stated by the city attorney and the appropriate motion and second made.
Thank you, Mr. Biedenbaugh. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council?
I didn't want to buy it, so I don't want to finance it, for sure. This is a 196-page item in our agenda. Can I suggest that staff find a way to maybe just give us the cover sheet, since we've approved this for the second reading? It's a lot of paper.
It is a lot of paper, and I would want to check with our legal counsel to make sure that's okay.
I mean, it's okay just to provide a copy of the memo and the ordinance cover sheet?
Okay. Sure. Okay.
I think Sarah now is happy.
Well, yes.
Thank you, Councilman DeWar. Any other comments from council? Okay, all those in favor of first reading of this ordinance authorizing the financing of the new municipal building on Chesterfield Street South through an installment purchase contract as amended by the city attorney in motion and seconded, please raise your hand. Councilman Walk, Councilwoman Price, the mayor, Councilwoman Diggs, Councilman Giardo, all those opposed? Noted. Councilman DeWar, thank you. I'd like to make a comment, if I could take the pleasure of doing this. I think this offers an opportunity for our city. I firmly believe that when you see public money, usually private investment follows, and I think this is a great opportunity for that. But in other discussions that we've had in our city, parking has always been, we're very fortunate to be a city that has a parking issue. And this property was time and time again brought up to this council as a perfect place for whether it be ground parking, or if we never needed to go up with a garage, it would be perfect behind the AECOM building. And the only problem with that discussion previously was we didn't own the property. So it's I think a tribute to our community and this council that we're moving forward. It checks a lot of boxes, not only the consolidation and the one-stop shop for our citizens and what we were able to do with our staff, but also that we're able to address that parking. And I would be remiss if I didn't repeat a comment from shared to me by our very youthful city clerk, Ms. Sarah Rideout, who said, I remember Roland Wyndham and Mayor Weeks talking about that Willis Irvin building being a beautiful place for City Hall. So I hope we can make that a reality, and I thank this council for the votes tonight. So. Moving down to item number 4 under new business. This is a first reading of an ordinance to amend the city budget for fiscal year 2019-20 by title, an ordinance amending the budget of the city of Aiken for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2020. Before I get a motion in a second, I'm going to ask staff if they would make the comments and kind of let us know a little bit about what this is for.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Every year, we have to close the books on the prior fiscal year, and typically, we have to make a budget amendment to the current fiscal year budget because we have unspent funds. Historically, it's been several $100,000 typically transfer or carried forward from the general fund from one year to the next. This year, we do have approximately a little over $2 million in unspent funds due to a number of reasons. Part of it was increased property tax revenue. We found out in June when we were well into our budget process that we got about $500,000 in insurance collections, salary underruns, which essentially what that is we have almost over 400 city employee positions, FTEs, and like any organization of that size, there are always going to be vacancies. A job gets filled, another position is vacant, so and so forth. But we ended up with a very significant amount of unspent funds, which beats the alternative of being in the hole, but it did, the revenue estimations, I think maybe we're a tad bit conservative, but we have this in front of us, and what we're recommending to council is we add an additional $525,000 to economic development, which already has $250,000 allocated in this year's budget. If approved, we would have $775,000 designated for economic development projects. We're also designating $700,000 for the municipal building consolidation that was just approved moments ago via the resolution and first reading of the ordinance. Also, as a goal of council was to expand the downtown business district. With that, a number of other properties became eligible for receiving facade grant revenue or for facade grant funds. And we funded $25,000. We added another $50,000, which would give us $75,000 that property owners in the downtown business zone, which now stretches east to Williamsburg Street, would be eligible for, which was a big goal of City Council, and you provided very clear direction on that. We're also adding $300,000 to building depreciation for our general fund departments, specifically public safety, public services, parks, recreation, and tourism, and city manager's office. And we are also recommending, one thing we have not done, at least in my recollection, I won't say never, but we are recommending adding a position into public safety, a crime analyst position. The chief and staff have recommended this position for about 4 years now, 4 different budget cycles. We've not added it. The genesis of this came when we had an operational audit performed in mid-year and late year 2015, and we are putting, this is money that will be annualized, but we do believe our budget can absorb it. And finally, we are adding about $457,000 to our water and sewer system depreciation fund. So, but you have before you tonight first reading of an ordinance to amend our current fiscal year 2019-2020 budget to include unspent funds from the fiscal year 2018-2019 budget.
Very good. And I'm going to ask Chief if he would to expand. I know we need a motion in a second too, but before we do, would you come up and tell us a little bit about the crime analyst position?
Mayor, Council. As we discussed earlier, the crime analyst position would focus on all the data that we bring into public safety through incident reports, through our records management system, through the CAD system, to focus and make our resources more effective in the areas that they need to be effective. We believe there's a lot of data that we collect at public safety, but and we've been successful in some of these areas by computerized reasons, but having that human to go through them and somebody who's trained in crime analyst, we believe this will give us a more efficient department.
Very good. And it would be used across all the different
Divisions.
Yeah.
So the idea, as the recommendation from the operational audit was, that would report directly to me, and those resources that would need the crime analyst wouldn't be split into 7 or 8 different directions. They could focus on one time and be used across the department.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that with us. All right, with that information, is there a motion?
So, Mr. Mayor, that we adopt this on and amend the city budget for fiscal year 2019-2020.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Price. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Any comments from the audience? Okay, comments from council?
Yeah, I did mention it in the staff after in the work session after we talked about the staff shortages, but if there's any way we could work on adding a water leak team. I don't even know what the cost would be, but I noticed looking at the data that we received from utilities, we have more leaks this year than last. So if you could maybe just look at that, if it's possible.
Absolutely. Yes,
between
we
now and the
can.
next reading.
We can do that, and we'll have that in the packet at council's request to demonstrate the cost for that.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Dwyer. Any other comments?
I'd like to make one quick comment here. I'm very appreciative that we're putting money in for economic development. It's something we need to get done in this city, and the fact that we're willing to fund it shows that we're ready to take a step forward. We've been sitting on this for far too long, and this is a big step forward to us, and I think we'll see great returns on it. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilman Waltz.
And though I agree it's great to have $2 million extra dollars, we also were considering raising the taxes 2 mills, which we didn't do, and we would have looked pretty silly at this point had we had $2 million to raise the taxes. We need to tighten up in the future.
Mr. Beamer, you're going to get us a line breakdown of where this money.
Of the revenues?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. I'll have that for you at the next packet.
Okay.
Very good. All those in favor of first reading of an ordinance to amend the city budget for the fiscal year 2019-20, please raise your hand.
Finally.
And that's unanimous all through. I saw the audience.
Your idea
The audience
about
was
leaks
raising
is
their
good.
hands. That was
I agree
unanimous.
with Councilman Dwyer and the leak brigade.
Very good. Thank you. Moving to section 5 on our agenda, petitions and requests. Item number 1 is approval for art wraps downtown. I'll look to staff for comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to have had the privilege to work with Dr. Jordan, our chancellor at the college, on potential project to wrap Aiken-themed art around several city-owned utility boxes downtown. The art would be Aiken-centric and would be created by USC Aiken professors and their art students. The locations are laid out in the packet, but for description, there's a lot of people, when we did when we took out the trees at the center of Lawrence Street, people didn't realize that there was a very large electrical panel box that we've had there for many, probably 25 years, but the foliage had masked it. We've also got several boxes on Newberry Street and some of the traffic signal boxes near downtown that we have responsibility for. We were proposing, we walked, Dr. Jordan and I had a pleasant early morning walk recently where we identified these, and it has gone in front of the Arts Commission for their approval, and I believe Dr. Jordan has a brief presentation. So come to the podium. We tried not to make you wait too long.
Good evening, Dr. Jordan.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you an idea we have at USC Aiken for marketing the arts in general for the City of Aiken, and a little soft sell for USC Aiken. So as Mr. Biegenbaugh mentioned, we have a beautiful downtown area, and you can see some of the photographs here. But if I may, I'll highlight necessary evil, and that is the junction boxes and the light boxes that are all over downtown and throughout the community. So the concept here is not new. We find many communities who have wrapped the boxes in a variety of ways. Here you can see the boxes in Columbia, South Carolina, with artworks reproduced and advertising for the Vista. Or you can go to Chicago and they have a poetry wrapping their boxes there, as you can see with this example in Chicago. Another one here from San Luis Obispo in California was original paintings, which I understand didn't last very long after it rained, but nonetheless, whimsical and fun, but we're not really here to promote San Luis Obispo. So, as you know, a lot of time and effort has gone into the beautification of downtown, and I think you just mentioned this, our city manager just mentioned this. This is some of the beautiful plantings on Lawrence Street, right in the middle of the median. And then there's the other part of that display, which is quite large box. So the box ends up taking center stage, if you will, and we would rather have center stage take center stage, or photographs having to do with the performing and the fine arts. So here is what it could look like, a promotion for the arts in Aiken. And the images, as you will see as we go through here, include some soft selling, our new logo for USC Aiken, always looking for an opportunity to connect the university to the community. But also a calendar, a way to send people to the arts calendar. And I made up the URL here because I wasn't sure what it was, but our city manager, I'm sure, if you approve this, will give us the correct URL. There are 5 to 8 boxes that we shopped around and looked at for downtown space. I think we would finalize the number of boxes and the locations with the city officials. Here you can see another work. It just happens to be Michael Jordan's pottery, someone that I'm kind of close to. The other Michael Jordan, my husband. So this is in one of the medians. It's a large junction box there, and it shows you just an idea of how it could look with a little soft sell of USC Aiken, but a trend of the arts in Aiken. Hopefully pedestrians and people driving by will be driven to the calendar to see what's happening all throughout Aiken. We have a very active arts community. We know that there'll be guidelines for appropriate art, no violence, as you can see, no nudity. I questioned the city manager on that, and he was adamant. Nothing overtly political, nor violent subjects, of course, and everything copyright-free or the copyright owned by USC Aiken. We will pay. I did not know you had unspent funds, so I volunteered to pay for the production of the wraps and the installation of the wraps. We are going this route with sort of the general imagery so that it's not referring to just one performance in a particular month, so that we can get 12 months worth out of our investment on these wraps for the community. If the wrap is damaged any time within that 12-month time period, we'll repair, replace, or remove at no cost to the city. An example with an original work of art by one of our local artists, Kevin Jones, always using the arts in Aiken as the tagline. And another example here in the beautiful parking area of the alley. And this is a mock-up, obviously. The sign won't wrap around the truck, but the best I could do. So it just shows you one more time a soft sell of the university and the potential that we have of dressing up these boxes and recognizing the strong role that the performing and visual arts play here in Aiken. Another example, this is one we looked at when we did our tour around town. This one happens to be on Newberry and Park. It's a little smaller than some of the other boxes, but you can see we can shrink the final works of art. We also have said that if we have it near a pedestrian space instead of a driving space, we can do one of those scan barcodes on it so that folks who are very good with that sort of thing can just hold their phone up to the barcode and get the calendar that way as well. That would not be me, but that would be so. Oh, do you have any questions? That's the basic concept.
I love the idea. I can't wait to see the finished products, but you said you already paid for it, right?
We
You're
will.
not asking for reimbursement.
No, not until I came to this meeting and heard you had money. No, ma'am.
Spoken like a true chancellor.
I'm looking for that bargain. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a great idea.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Lord, appreciate it. It's great. I think we need a motion still, don't we? Yeah.
Yes.
We need to take a motion in a second, and then it'll absolutely be open for comment.
Several, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilwoman Price. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Waltz. Comments from the audience. Good evening.
My name is Catherine Thomas, and I'm chairman of the Arts Commission. And we had the pleasure of seeing Dr. Jordan's presentation a couple months ago, and we loved the idea and we're fully in support of it. I did have a question, though. We didn't see the pictures that they provided tonight, and we were a little bit concerned with the first location, the Lawrence Street Mini Park, just because that park has gone through such a big transformation over the past few months, and it's not the park that it used to be. And we just don't want it to look like, since it's so wide open now, for it to look anything like a sign. So I didn't see, I was at such an angle, and I've got some eye issues going on, so I couldn't really tell what was proposed. But I hope that the commission could have some sort of review.
Can we roll that back? And absolutely, I think more important than tonight, maybe just let it go back to the commission. I'm sure that would be.
Yeah.
I think probably the whole commission would like to see it, so maybe we could.
I thought that's how we left it when.
You left it by approving it, but we'll go back. And we said that all of the images could be approved by the city council.
Yeah. I would love, Catherine, I'd love your opinion of it, though.
Which one was it?
It was the first one.
Ballet dancers.
Yeah, there you go. These are mock-ups to show you what it would look like.
Well, I love the soft sell of arts in Aiken along with that.
No, I mean, they're lovely. I was just.
Certainly.
I just didn't know our involvement was going to stop then.
Okay. Does that look suitable for you? Or?
Well, it does to me, but I'm not the whole commission.
I think the commission approved the project and moved it forward, and
Yes, that was our understanding, but we could certainly
There was a
work with the,
location concern, though, is all I was.
with this particular box. Okay. Well, we could have staff work with the commission and USC Aiken to make sure everybody's on the same page. That
Absolutely.
it's something that meets the expectations of the council, the Arts Commission and USC Aiken.
Okay, and then one last question, the one about Mini Box by William Aiken Fountain, is that the one that's, which one was that?
These are examples.
Oh, okay, so it's not the exact box, okay, that's all I was wondering.
all right.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Thomas, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Any other comments from the audience? Okay, comments from council? All right, all those in favor of approval of the art wraps downtown, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. And Stuart, if you don't mind, if as we get that, could you work to coordinate between USC Aiken and our?
Absolutely.
Arts
I've made a note. And two, once we get a sense of what it is, the various art pieces, the wraps, we will send to council and put in the agenda packet for notification as well.
Very good, thank you. Item number 2 under petitions and requests is a request for approval of fox hunt project in the downtown area. That's not what you're thinking right now. I'm going to ask staff if they would to tell us a little bit. This is something that was presented to council a while back, and I think now it's developed into a place where we can actually vote on this. And if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Beedenbaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What we have is in early 2018, we had Rebecca Vignay and Dr. Tom Aikens come and discuss a proposed project about the placing some 8-inch by 8-inch bronze fox statues in 6 locations in the downtown to create a fun scavenger hunt activity like has been seen in other jurisdictions. What we are looking at is after it went to the ADDA and member in our planning department, and it's been reviewed initially. I think the foxes were going to have the business's name on it, but now the name will be on a brochure that will be available produced by ADDA and available at certain downtown locations. The locations suggested for the statues include the train depot or the visitor center and train museum, the library park, the Parkway and Teague Parkway that's in front of this building, the Wilcox, the Parkway with the fountain near Trinity on Lawrence. Basically, it's the intersection of Lawrence and Barnwell, and across from the Alley Tap Room. The Wilcox is the one piece that's on private property. The others are public. And after the meeting in January 2018, this project has been discussed by the Parkways Task Force and the Design Review Board, and it is before you tonight for consideration to place these 6 fox statues in the downtown area at the requested locations.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Beedenbaugh. I'd entertain a motion at this time.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Dewar.
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Girardeau. I know Rebecca Vignay is here, and she brought this project to us some time ago. Rebecca, would you like to speak to it? And good evening.
Yeah, so Dr. Aikens and his wife, Anna, moved to Aiken probably about 3 years ago, maybe a little bit more now, and have their business over off of Silver Bluff Road, and they just wanted to do something to give back to Aiken. And so this is a project, they got the idea from Greenville, the Mice on Main project, and so they wanted to do something similar in Aiken with little foxes. So they're supposed to be baby foxes and bronze statues, and we hope that it'll give people a reason to come downtown with their families and walk around, and give something for tourists to do as well.
And how long?
Go ahead.
How long will the statues be up?
It's permanent.
It's a permanent.
They're brass.
Oh, it's permanent?
They're brass.
Okay. Oh,
They're
all
small
right.
foxes.
I didn't read that in there.
Yeah, they're 8 by 8.
Yeah.
So they'll be small. It'll be like a scavenger hunt. Like so, the Mice on Main project, they have small mice, and I think they have about 8 throughout their downtown. And they don't have a rack card or a map like we were proposing. They would. I think different businesses have different ways for them to find the mice, and so I think ours will be a little bit more organized in that aspect.
Rebecca, we were actually up there for the Municipal Association within the last month, and they actually have some stands that have all the locations of the mice listed around, which we would certainly encourage. Also, yeah, it was. In fact, I took a picture because I was excited. Yeah. This is a great project. That's something I'm excited about. And we all got to hear Knox White talk a little bit about the development in Greenville. And one thing he talked a lot about was public art and the mice. And how he had young people come up and say the mice and had got their curiosity up and looking at art in new ways. And so it really did bring a lot. And hearing him say that certainly rang true to this project. So we're very, very thankful for the doctor and his wife bringing this project to us.
y'all have any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
I appreciate it. Any other comments from the audience? Comments from council? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Item number 3, under petitions and requests, is a request for permission for displays for Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month in September and to hang banners in the downtown to promote the Aiken Symphony Orchestra concerts and Brenda's Angels events. Is there a motion from council?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman DeWar.
Second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Price.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask a really odd question. My wife's on the board. Should I excuse myself from voting on this? Mr. Smith?
Wouldn't be a bad idea, sir.
I thought so.
Whatever. Doesn't he have to fill something out to recuse himself?
All righty. Stuart, I believe, is pretty self-explanatory. Are there any comments from the audience on?
No lying.
Okay. Comments from council? Okay, all those in favor of this item, with noting the recusal of Mr. Waltz because his wife is on one of the boards, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. With the exception of recusal. Yes, sir. Mr.
I would like to add, if you go to any of the symphony presentations or concerts, you'll see our Aiken flag there. They have asked, they appreciate the support that we've given the symphony, and the flag will be traveling between here and the concert stage, each of the performances. We're excited about that, and we're honored to be recognized that way.
We're excited as well.
Thank you. All right. Everyone's back. Item number 4 under petitions and requests. This is a request from Aiken Chamber of Commerce for use of Park Avenue for Aiken's Macon event. Comments from staff first.
Thank you. This is, I believe, the 43rd edition of the Aiken's Macon, and we historically have worked with the chamber to facilitate the closure of the westbound lane of Park Avenue from Chesterfield to Union Street just before the railroad tracks to use the paved street for exhibitors, and also that half of the eastbound side of Park Avenue also be closed to motor vehicular traffic during the 2-day event, which is this year is Friday, September 6th and Saturday, September 7th.
Very good. All right, is there a motion?
So moved, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Second.
All right. That's Councilwoman Price, and then the second by Councilman DeWar. Comments from the audience? Comments from council?
Just want to say that David James and his crew can organize this in their sleep.
I believe so. They said you could organize it in your sleep, David.
Speaking of Park Avenue and the parkways, I assume we've delayed the work on the parkways
Correct.
until this is over?
It will start around September the 16th, and it is due to that reason.
Very, very good. Yes. Be excited to see that.
Yes.
Very good. All those in favor of this request, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to item number 5 under petitions and requests. This is an approval of a memorandum of understanding with the Aiken Veterans Council for banners. You may recall they came and presented to us a few meetings ago. So is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor, proudly.
Thank you,
I second.
Councilman DeWar. Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. I had no doubt that y'all two would be the ones who made the motion in second, by the way. Comments from staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have, at our July 8th meeting, we heard from our Aiken County Veterans Affairs Officer Dwight Bradham and Veterans Council member and VFW Post 5877 Commander Lowell Coppert about a proposal to hang banners to recognize area military veterans during certain times of the year, specifically the weeks before and after Memorial Day, which is the last Monday of May each year, and Veterans Day, which is commemorated on November the 11th. The city clerk, Ms. Rideout, and I met with Mr. Bradham and Linda Caldwell of the Veterans Council on July 15th to discuss the proposal and detail a path forward. It was felt that we should memorialize it with an MOU, and that is before council today, which would sort of state essentially that the banners, any costs related to the banners in terms of the actual banners themselves will be borne by the Veterans Council or another party other than the city. The city will provide the brackets and will mount the banners, and of course the city is not responsible for damage to the banners while they're hanging or being installed or removed. And that is before council tonight as a request, again, based on the direction we received from council at the July 8th meeting.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Beanbaum. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council?
I think Major Bradham is coming up.
I'm sorry, Major. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. I'd like to read a statement very quickly from our Aiken County Veterans Council Chairman, Mr. Lowell Copper. Mayor Osmond, City Manager Beedenbow, and esteemed members of Aiken County Council, please accept my apologies on not being here this evening to present what I feel will become one of the best ways that we can honor veterans in our city and county for the days, weeks, and years to come. However, we are still a nation at war, and so due to that reason, I have been called elsewhere. Aiken is a unique place where people from any walk of life, resident or visitors, can feel at home. It is a place where we take pride in helping one another. We have banners around the city that display the character traits of our residents, traits such as courage, respect, kindness, and responsibility. I ask that you stand by me as we honor the brave men and women who raised their right hands and swore an oath to complete strangers to protect each and every one of us at all costs if necessary. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and in this case, that sentiment cannot ring truer. Character does have a face in Aiken. Respectfully, Lowell Copper, Chairman of Aiken County Veterans Council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I say something?
You ever tell no, are
We vote on it.
You said I could.
The city manager asked if I was going to tell you no, and I said no. So.
That's so wrong.
So I was not telling you no, I was telling
So
him
wrong.
no.
City attorney.
City attorney, forgive me.
Caproni twice today.
I know.
I would just like to say thank you to Dwight and Linda, and to the entire Veterans Council. They have just been so active in this community the last few years, and I don't know whether you realize it, but they have stepped up, and they are playing a big part in the Memorial Day parade coordination. So it's not just a few of us, Linda, it's now the entire Veterans Council. But they also put a blessing box on the property of our health center, the Clyburn Center, this past weekend. So they have been a blessing to me and to this community, and I just thank them so much. I really do.
Thank you, Ms. Diggs. Appreciate that. Any other comments from the audience before we leave? Okay, any other comments from council? Okay, all those in favor of the memorandum of understanding with the Aiken Veterans Council for banners, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. All right, item number 6 under petitions and requests. This is an approval of a memorandum of understanding with N&M LLC to allow for operation of an ice skating rink. And I'll ask for staff comment before I ask for a motion.
Thank you. The mayor and I met with Mike Fanning and Norman Dunnigan, the principals of N&M LLC, regarding their interest in operating a public ice skating rink from November 18, 2019 through January 11th, 2020 at Citizens Park. The proposed MOU would lease a portion of Citizens Park free of charge. The city would provide access to water, and they do not need fence panels, I'm told, but that is in the cover memo. But Mr. Fanning said they would provide their own fence panels, so essentially just the space and the access for to water. Appropriate amounts of liability insurance and other appropriate insurance will be enforced in the responsibility of N&M LLC. And this proposed lease has a 2-year option for a similar period in 2020 and 2021 as well.
Okay, thank you. This was also, just through conversation, this was brought up. This is at the location where, for our Christmas at Hopelands, which is one of our biggest draws to the city that we have, there are people who are standing and waiting. I did a lot of, was able to, fortunate enough to schedule to have a lot of greeting as people were getting off the buses. They were waiting in the area of 45 minutes plus to get on the buses. So this concept kind of came up as an area that we're not using. They're willing to buy it's a synthetic ice. They say it's what the hockey players will practice on, though. Is that real? And create almost a Christmas village while our citizens are waiting to come out. I think it's a value added for our citizens when they're waiting, and they would hope to expand it with a tent, maybe even a Rockefeller Center sort of thing with a tree in the center of it. But I think it would just be something that would be another draw for our city, other than spaces not being used, is what we're giving to this. They're taking all the risk with the investment. It would be a rent skates to use kind of situation, but I think it's something I wish that we had the money to do as a city, quite frankly, because I think it's such a neat value added for the city. So that's how this sort of became an item before us tonight.
And it was a hit in Augusta last year.
Yeah.
They did it at Augusta Commons, and
it would run.
I hate all the young people. Excuse me, y'all not old, but all of the kids that were here earlier didn't get to hear that there will be ice skating in Aiken during the holidays.
Well, we need a motion.
It took off in Augusta, and we need that. And I know we're going to make this motion. We're going to pass this, y'all.
There's a prediction.
Something else. So
moved.
We have a motion from Councilman DeWar, second from Councilman Giardo.
told you.
Comments from the audience. Comments from any other council member.
Since I just found my antique CCM skates, I hope there's a skate sharpener there. I'll be there.
Are we going to have oversight of the concessions offered?
They will provide, well, the firm that has the concessions contract at Citizens Park has the first right of refusal, but also Mr. Fanning was also going to have potential concessions there as well. But they will be paying, they'll need to have a business license, et cetera, where appropriate.
So they won't pay the city any monies.
Well, any businesses that were selling would have business
any
license.
hospitality tax or business license revenue would
And
be.
how much would it cost for the kids to skate?
I don't know that.
That is something that they've not shared with us. I'm not sure what their sense is.
From my conversations with Mike Fanning, I'm pretty excited about it.
Me too.
I think this
Me
has
too.
got a chance to be something pretty big. They expect to lose money the first year, but I'm sure what they will do is make it very reasonable so that they can get people out there. I think this can grow and turn into something that's great for Aiken, and it is a great example of a private-public partnership of doing something that benefits the city. Maybe one day they'll be able to recoup some of the expenses going forward, but I'm very much excited about this.
All right. Well, I hope that Mr. DeWar finds a sharpener for his skates.
I do too. Yep.
I will not skate.
All those in favor of the approval of a memorandum for understanding with N&M LLC to allow the operation of an ice skating rink, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. All right, item number 7. I know we have some members who have hung tough with us on this. Thank y'all for that. Approval of capital project sales tax 2 money for bicycle route signage. Comments from staff first, please.
Yes, we did hear from Tom Lex who came and discussed this back in May, I believe, May the 13th. And we have had since round 2 of CPST dating back to 2004 and a little forward, we've got about $186,000 for bicycle paths and related accessories. And what this is would allow for the installation of signage with these dedicated routes that have been around since the Aiken County Urbanized Area Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan was approved back in 2012. So it is before you tonight to approve the expenditure of the funding for the signage.
Very good. Do we have a motion?
I so move.
Thank you, Councilwoman Diggs. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Girardeau. Comments from the audience? Anyone? Anyone at all? Tom? I'm sorry. I just wanted to make you raise your hand twice. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for putting this proposal on the agenda. I just wanted to say that what this proposal does is basically it creates a network of designated bicycle routes to connect various points of interest in the city. And I think it's a major step forward in making our city bicycle friendly, which you've heard me say a number of times how becoming a bicycle friendly city, it has health, has environmental and economic benefits. By having these designated routes, what we've done is basically provided risk mitigation for those people who either have to ride bikes for their transportation, and we do have a significant number of residents in our community who have to do that. It also helps those people who want to ride their bikes for recreation but currently are not, they're afraid to get out on the roads because they feel they're unsafe. What we've done with these designated routes is identified low traffic density routes. We've gone through a review process with public safety to take a look at traffic incidents, crash statistics, and so on. Carl Odenthal was our lead point of contact for that. And basically, the conclusion is that all the routes and all the intersections, which are always a point of concern, do not fall in any of the high incident categories. They're most of the intersections have had no traffic incidents, basically. So we have safe routes that will basically mitigate the risk for people who choose to ride their bikes. That's the bottom line.
And it is 100% signage, not marking, no lanes, no sharrows.
We're not proposing paint on the road. We're not proposing bike lanes. We know the issue with bike lanes. In fact, if we continue to focus only on things like bike lanes, we will never make progress in the short term because we really only have that option for road improvement projects where you have to procure right away and you have to go through major changes, in the roadway. It's just cost prohibitive to try to do that on our existing roadways. So what we need to do is really find the routes with the low traffic density and relatively safe routes that people who need to ride bikes and want to ride bikes can ride in the city of Aiken and get to various points of interest.
Thank you. Thank you and the committee's work on this.
Got another comment.
Any other comments from the audience? Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Freeman Coleman. I'm a man on a mission, and I want to tell you about my mission. I want to get butts on bikes. I want to get people riding in Aiken. People like riding in Aiken, but they're afraid. And I just want to make 3 points about these routes that make me really excited. One is, this is for everybody. I just want you to think of all the times you've gone to somebody's house and it's like, there's an old rusty bicycle in the garage. Or maybe it's even sitting there now in your garage right now. Well, if we can make safe places for people to ride and make them more comfortable, then people are going to be out riding. You bought that bike for a reason. People want to ride. So let's give them a place to go where they feel safe. We all say we want to live more active lifestyles. The riding our bikes gives us that opportunity to be active. So this is promoting active lifestyles, and it's something families can do too. So we always talk about getting back to family roots. This is a great family activity. You can do it for free once the routes are up. And those are 3 points that really got me excited about the routes. So.
Thank you for sharing with us tonight. I'm excited about the routes now too. Yes, sir. Good evening. It's good to see you again.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mayor, council members. My name's Al Clark. I'm at 6095 Ryefield Road here in Aiken. I'm here to speak in favor of approving the use of the CAP project sales tax for bike route signage. I'm co-founder of Aiken Bicycle Advocacy. It's a group that, since its recent activation, has 170 members and is growing. Study after study has proven that a city that is friendly to bicycles is friendly to its citizens. A bicycle-friendly community has a vibrant downtown. A city that welcomes bikes welcomes families. Young people, as an example, millennials who may eschew owning a car, benefit from a city where they can get around conveniently and safely. Businesses that benefit from cities that have a plan that enables people to get to their storefronts. Those people spend money. Those citizens who need to ride a bike to get to work benefit from bike routes, and as does the city itself through higher employment rates. Real estate values are higher where bike routes are convenient. The population is healthier and healthcare costs go down for healthy people. A recent study told us that 34% of the US population rode a bike within the last year. In 2017, the population of Aiken was pegged at 30,721. By extension, that means about 10,000 people in Aiken rode a bike within the last year. Of course, that number could be skewed in either direction, but I believe that we can be assured that a lot of people in Aiken have bikes in their garage and ride them or want to. The bike routes proposal is good for the people of Aiken, good for the city of Aiken. I urge you to look favorably on the proposal, make Aiken a better place to ride a bike and an even better place to live. Thank you.
Al, thank you. And it was nice to have a chance to visit with you earlier this morning. We started off this morning and ended today. Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Brian D'Entremont. I live on 195 Dogwood Road. While growing up, I cycled all over Aiken and learned to navigate its smaller streets well by exploring them. But finding those routes today, good routes to destinations in Aiken, has become more challenging. The roads are busier. New construction has reconfigured areas that used to be easier to find. So this proposal is to just help people find that connectivity among our residential streets. It often still exists, but isn't so obvious. And I just want to note that as a participant in meetings to develop these routes, I can attest to the detailed discussions that were had on the placement of each route and the consensus that emerged between cyclists, each with decades of experience in this town, and would urge you to support it. Thank you.
Brian, thank you for sharing with us tonight. Appreciate it. Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
I'm Kathy Klein. I live at 257 Vanderbilt Drive, and I'm a retired school nurse for Aiken County. And I came to talk about, I wish the kids were still here, because I would like to ask them to raise their hands and say, how many of you feel safe riding a bike? I'm here to speak for one of my students who is not here with us any longer. He died riding a bike in his neighborhood in Aiken County. I want this county, the city, to be a safe place. I love to ride bikes. I do it in Greenville. I do it in Daniel Island. I do it in North Augusta. I want to do it in Aiken, where I live. I want to be able to leave my house on Powder House Road and be able to pedal downtown. I can drive there in 5 minutes. I could get there in 15 on a bike. It'd be healthier for me, and it'd be a great experience. But I can't leave my neighborhood on a bike right now because I'm afraid I might get hit. I've had people who I've known and who I've seen 5 minutes before here in Aiken this year who were killed on the streets of our county and on our city. And I'm just here to speak for those who could no longer speak for themselves, and the children who I spent my youth on a bike, and I want my grandchildren to be able to do the same thing here. Thank you.
Kathy, thank you for being a voice for that student and others. Any other comments from the audience? Comments or questions from council?
I had the privilege of attending their meeting the other night, and I can tell you, that's a big group, and I think a lot of them are here tonight. I want them to just stand up. They're passionate about this, and I enjoyed the meeting with them. Even had our offer to come and ride one of the Pedigo bikes.
Pedagos.
Pedigo,
Pedagos.
whatever. See, I'll get it right. See that? So I'm gonna take him up on that, but I really enjoyed that, and I know they're passionate about it. And in my district, riding a bike for so many of my constituents that's their mode of transportation. So I want everybody to be safe.
Let me just add that I'm coming up on 2,000 miles on my Pedigo in like 18 months, so I've enjoyed it. It's a great bike.
Pedigo. Which one is it?
Coker, it sounds like you're getting a lot of good plugs tonight. Well done. So, Coker Day is the owner of Pedigo, and some of his team members are here, but, you know, they're the ones who are doing a lot of the tours on the bikes, and they've worked around. They actually have equestrians who are riding through, so they know how to react around our horses and our training, so they're not obtrusive. And I'd like to say it's a great program. Your bikes are fantastic, and appreciate you taking the time to work through some of those Aiken issues, as to not be something that's a hindrance or to our equestrian community, but actually in a positive. And I look forward to leading that tour for you in October, or September, isn't it? So, thank you. All right, any other comments? All those in favor of approval of capital project sales tax 2 money for bicycle route signage, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Congratulations. A lot of hard work went into that. Well done. Well done, guys. Moving down to number 8, acceptance of a Federal Aviation Administration grant for the Aiken Regional Airport. Stuart, I'll let you make comments on that.
Thank you, Mayor. July 31st, we were informed that we were awarded an FAA grant for new taxi lanes. It was included in our annual 5-year improvement plan that we file with the FAA. The project cost is $1,034,509, with $369,369 from the FAA, $394,965 from State Aeronautics, with a local match of $270,150. We funded $200,000 of the local match within our budget and recommend funding the balance out of potential carry forward money under council consideration. I do want to compliment the hard work of Joy Lester as the airport manager also.
All right.
Very good. Good news. All right, is there a motion?
So, Mr. Mayor.
Second. Thank you, Councilman DeWar. Thank you, Councilman Waltz. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council? Hearing none, all those in favor of acceptance of a Federal Aviation Administration grant for the Aiken Regional Airport, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Item 9, a request to remand the concept plan for 828 Richland Avenue West. I'm going to ask Mr. Beedenball for comment first.
Yes. On June 10th, City Council passed first reading of the concept plan of the Old County Hospital property located at 828 Richland Avenue West. On August 2nd, the applicant, WTC Investments LLC, verbally stated that the concept plan will be amended, and the verbal description described a change that was substantial enough for the planning director, city attorney, and I to recommend that council remand the project or consider remanding the project back to the Planning Commission for reconsideration at their September 10th meeting, and then the concept plan could come back to City Council for second reading as early as September 23rd.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Beedenball. Is there a motion for this request to remand?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Councilman DeWar with the motion and Councilwoman Price with the second. Any comments from the audience? Yes, sir. Dr. Napier, good evening again.
Yeah, Rocking the Pier, Trafalgar Street. You guys have received information that has caused you to bring this motion before City Council tonight.
Yes, sir.
correct? I would like
Verbally.
to know what information that is that you have received to cause you to bring this motion before council tonight.
That the concept plan is changing substantially enough that we didn't feel like it would be a second reading. We felt like it needed to go back through the process.
I don't necessarily disagree with that, but at the same time, my question has not been answered. And that is, what has been changed in the concept plan to cause you to remand this issue rather than carry it forward to the second reading?
Right, and it will be presented obviously at planning and then come back to us again, but I think that the changes, do you want to speak to that?
I mean, verbally, what was told is the parking garage has been eliminated from the project.
Anything else?
No, sir. Not that I've heard verbally, and
I understand that you've received this request verbally, but is it not normally received in writing and more specific and more readily available and open to the public?
it was received in an email, but it initiated with a phone call to the planning director.
Okay, so the hotel is still in the concept plan,
From what we understand, yes, sir.
and the high-density housing unit is still in the plan.
Apartments are in the housing plan, yes, sir.
And the detention pond, not the decorative pond, but the detention pond is still in the plan.
It would have to be most likely for a development of this size, or else it could not get past muster.
How did the hospital get by with a decorative pond and not this particular development?
Which hospital? The
Aiken
current?
Regional Medical Centers.
I was not here when that project was built. That was built in what, 1977? So I suspect the stormwater rules were probably different than they are today.
Same reason that Hounds Lake has 3 amenity ponds and that were never turned over.
That's a whole other story.
Well, that's what the developer decided.
Yeah. But certainly I'd be happy to send you any email that we have, but I think, and to try to be more transparent to this, that we're sending it back to planning for a completely another hearing on that and their approval and an opportunity for citizens.
And some
to
of the
view it.
notes that I've seen in the last couple of days along the way, and I believe this has been corrected, but it was mentioned that this would go back to Planning Commission and it would be for 1 reading. Then it would come back to council, and in that communication, it said it'd come back to council for 2nd reading.
That's correct.
But it's my understanding that since this is a new proposal that's going back to the Planning Commission for consideration, that it would then have to come back to City Council for 1st reading.
Well, it's not a new
and then
proposal.
a 2nd reading.
It's not a new proposal, but it's substantially changed enough that this body and our staff felt like they wanted planning to look at it to make sure that before we voted for 2nd. But it's not substantially different enough that you would have to go through the whole process.
I don't understand that, quite frankly.
I don't understand that logic whatsoever.
If we're sending it back to Planning Commission because it's been so significantly changed from what we first saw, I don't know why they are going to approve it and give us 2nd reading. I think if it comes back, it should come back as 1st reading.
Well, I'd like to see what the plan looks like, I think, before.
I mean, I'm just asking about the normal process. I'm thinking that
If I may, in the past, we have, council has had a proposal come to them, and after the 1st reading, there has either been a change in what was being proposed to be done, or city council had made a recommendation about a change that needed to be done, and then it was suggested that change go back to the planning commission because it may have been more significant than just changing the color of a wall or something like that. I think everybody would agree, going from a concept where there is a parking garage to going to a concept where there is not a parking garage is a significant change, but it's not, I mean, it's still on the same piece of property. It's still the same type of development that was being proposed originally. Certainly if council wants to have 2 more readings, that's council's prerogative. But the act of sending it back to the planning commission gives the public the opportunity to review the project again before it's recommended for approval. And then you'll have another reading when it comes back to city council.
you're comfortable with it coming back for 2nd reading.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Rocky, appreciate you.
I never gave it a thought.
Any other comments from the audience? Any other comments or questions from council?
I have a question
Yes,
regarding the developer. Is he aware that what will take place this evening?
Yes, Councilwoman Price.
Mr. Price? Yes. Okay. He's not related, you all.
Oh, really? Trying to steal my voter every time.
Mayor, members.
I just have to point out that your husband William is just shaking his head back there.
I'm shocked to see him here. I just realized he was here about 3 minutes ago.
Thank you for taking our request to remand this back to Planning Commission. What this entails, the square footage allocations are still the same on the buildings. This has to do with parking requirements and needs from us. And that's what this site plan will reflect.
All right, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Any other comments or questions from council? Okay, all those in favor of this request to remand the concept plan back to planning, please raise your hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you. I know we need to go into an executive session. I see Coach Curtis is sitting here. Did you want to say something to us, Coach? You all right? Okay, very good.
I'll ask you to say something because Curtis is is concerned about some things within our community, and I don't want to force him to do that, but he has his basketball group and just want to get more involved with trying to help have programs to get these young people off the streets and into something constructive, so.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Mayor, Council. One of the brief things I came to the council meeting, just to see how things, operate in the city. I love the city of Aiken and been in it for many years. But what I'm seeing, I'm trying to figure out, will there be a program that reaches the at-risk youth? I mean, we have many programs, and many of the programs are great. I mean, I've been mentoring for many years. At times, we even visited the idea of the city adopting my program and, things. And I'm not necessarily looking for that, but I'm looking to see where can I help at. And that's just my bottom line is what can I do since I have the ear to the at-risk youth. I'm a person that they talk to. And many of the programs, and again, the program that came up with Chief and them tonight, I mean, that was great. Love it. The tennis program, love it. But there's still so many youth that we're missing. And so I'm asking the city to see if we can come up with some type of idea or a plan to reach these youth that we seem to keep finding them in our newspapers and on the crime side. And so that's all I would like to say this evening.
We have the chief here, we have Jessica here, and we're open to ideas of things that you have. So I think I'm speaking accurately for them in terms of, and Jessica's nodding her head. So we're looking for those programs. So
I'm willing to help.
Okay.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Before we adjourn, we need to go into executive session to
All
continue.
right, just a minute. Speaking of Jessica Campbell, and I said it in the work session, but now in the regular meeting, want to congratulate Jessica and her staff for having the Dixie Youth World Series here in Aiken. We had people from Texas and Louisiana.
Unfortunately, Louisiana.
Yeah, we might not invite them back.
They whipped us.
That's neither here nor there. It was great. We got to talk to the one of the directors of Dixie Youth who said how great it was to come to Aiken and how much he enjoyed being here. And I would encourage Jessica to do more of these things. Do we know what the economic impact is yet? I'll be interested to see that because they stayed in our hotels and ate in our restaurants, and it was a great event, and hopefully we'll have more like that.
And we were proud of our Aiken team. Absolutely. Thank you, well done.
Hey, we got a councilman in the audience.
And if I could recognize one of our own, Steve Hamoki, for being here with us tonight.
Yay.
Welcome back, Steve.
Whole meeting, and he didn't have to.
Do you miss it?
And let the record reflect, he's laughing at Mr. DeWar's question.
Smiling, that's right.
All right. City Council will go into executive session pursuant to Section 30-470A2 to discuss negotiations incident to proposed contractual arrangement, proposed sale or purchase of property, and receive legal advice where the legal advice relates to a pending, threatened, or potential claim or other matters covered by the attorney-client privilege. Specifically, City Council will discuss the following, proposed contractual arrangements with the potential owner of the old Aiken County office building, and City Council will receive a briefing on the status of lawsuit filed against the city by a former employee. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So, I second Ed's
Fairdo,
motion.
thank you, Councilman Price. All those in favor, please raise your hand and count.
And I want to end by saying that I know that there's no dinner at home because William Price is sitting in the room.
I was
Exactly.
thinking the same thing.
My wife's here too, so.